Welcome to Asking AI. In this episode, I'm going to be asking, how do you view the debate between national security and individual privacy rights, especially in the context of surveillance? So let's just jump right into it, starting off with Bing AI. This is a complex and controversial topic that has no easy answer. There are valid arguments on both sides of the debate, and the different situations may call for different approaches. Here are some of the main points that I found from the web search results. National security is the primary responsibility of the government, and it is essential to protect the country and its citizens from external and internal threats. Surveillance can be a useful tool to prevent and detect terrorist attacks, cyber attacks, espionage, and other crimes that could harm the nation's interests and security. Individual privacy rights are also fundamental to the American democracy, and they reflect the values and principles of the Constitution. Privacy is not only a legal or constitutional right, but also a human right that allows people to express themselves freely, maintain their dignity, and pursue their happiness. Surveillance can infringe on these rights and create a chilling effect on civil liberties such as freedom of speech, association, and religion. The debate between national security and individual privacy rights is not a zero-sum game where one has to be sacrificed for the other. There are ways to balance the two interests and achieve both goals, such as establishing clear and transparent laws and regulations, ensuring judicial oversight and accountability, and respecting the proportionality and necessity principles. Surveillance should be conducted only when there is a legitimate and compelling reason and with the least intrusive means possible. I hope this helped you understand the debate better. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to ask me. I feel like it was a concise answer, but it also didn't really dive into much. It didn't give its own perspective. It just kind of gave summaries that I found on the internet. All right, here's the answer from ChatGPT. The debate between national security and individual privacy rights is a complex and often contentious issue that touches on the core values of safety, freedom, and the role of government. Here's a multifaceted look at the key points of this ongoing debate. 1. National security concerns. Proponents of increased surveillance argue that it's essential for the protection of a country and its citizens. They maintain that the government needs certain powers to prevent terrorist attacks, cyber threats, and other criminal activities that could harm the nation. The use of surveillance and data collection is often justified as a necessary tool to track and stop potential threats before they materialize. 2. Privacy rights advocacy. On the other side, advocates for individual privacy assert that the right to privacy is fundamental and should not be compromised. They fear the erosion of civil liberties and point out the potential for government overreach and abuse of power. There is also concern about the lack of transparency and accountability in how collected data is used. 3. Legal and ethical balance. The legal framework governing surveillance and privacy often seeks a balance between these competing interests. For instance, laws may allow surveillance but with strict oversight and judicial approval processes to prevent abuse. Ethical considerations also play a role, as there is a debate over whether the ends, national security, can justify the means, invasion of privacy. 4. Technological advances. The rapid advancement of technology adds another layer to this debate. With the rise of digital communication and the Internet of Things, there are more ways than ever for governments to collect data. This makes it technically easier to carry out surveillance, but also raises new privacy concerns that laws may not yet fully address. 5. Public opinion and cultural values. Different societies place different values on privacy and security, which can shape the debate in various countries. In some places, there is a greater willingness to sacrifice privacy for the sake of security, while in others, there is a strong tradition of safeguarding individual rights. 6. International perspectives. The debate also has an international dimension, as surveillance can cross borders. This raises questions about the rights of foreign citizens, international law, and the sovereignty of nations. 7. Historical precedents. Historical events such as abuses of power by governments or catastrophic terrorist attacks can shift public opinion and policy toward one side of the debate or the other, sometimes leading to rapid changes in laws and norms. In the end, the debate is about finding the right balance where national security measures do not infringe unduly on individual privacy rights. This balance is dynamic and must be continuously evaluated as circumstances, technology, and societal values evolve. All right, I felt like that answer was more in-depth than Bing AI's answer. And this is ChatGPT 4 that I'm using here. But so far, none of these have actually given their view. They've just kind of summarized the concerns and issues that other people have expressed. It's not actually giving any opinion of its own. All right, here is Google Bard's answer. The debate between national security and individual privacy rights is a complex and long-standing one, and it has become increasingly relevant in the digital age, where vast amounts of personal data are collected and stored electronically. Surveillance, the systemic monitoring of individuals or groups, is a key aspect of this debate, as it can be used to gather information that could be used to prevent crime or terrorism, but it can also be used to invade people's privacy. There are strong arguments to be made on both sides of the debate. On the one hand, national security is of paramount importance, and governments have a responsibility to protect their citizens from harm. Surveillance can be an effective tool for preventing crime and terrorism, and it can also be used to investigate and prosecute criminals. On the other hand, individual privacy is a fundamental right, and people have a right to expect that their personal information will not be collected or used without their consent. Excessive surveillance can create a chilling effect on free speech and association, and it can also lead to abuse of power. In the context of surveillance, there are a number of important factors to consider. One is the purpose of the surveillance. Is it being used to prevent crime or terrorism, or is it being used for other purposes, such as political espionage or social control? Another factor to consider is the scope of the surveillance. Is it being used to target specific individuals or groups, or is it being used to collect data on everyone? Finally, it is important to consider the safeguards that are in place to protect individual privacy. Are there clear rules about how the data can be collected, used, and stored? Are there independent oversight mechanisms in place? There is no easy answer to the question of how to balance national security and individual privacy rights. Ultimately, it is a matter of making difficult trade-offs. However, it is important to have a public debate about these issues and to ensure that there is adequate transparency and accountability in government surveillance programs. Here are some additional points to consider. The threat of terrorism is often used to justify increased surveillance, but it is important to remember that terrorists are a very small fraction of the population. The vast majority of people who are subjected to surveillance are innocent. Surveillance technology is becoming increasingly powerful, and it is important to ensure that this technology is not used to create a surveillance state. The collection of personal data can be used to create detailed profiles of individuals, which can be used to track people's movements, monitor their communications, and even predict their future behavior. This raises serious concerns about privacy and autonomy. The debate between national security and individual privacy rights is likely to continue for many years to come. It is a complex issue with no easy answers, but it is an important one to have. Ultimately, we need to find a way to protect both our national security and our individual privacy rights. All right, what I liked about Bard's answer more than the other one so far, and spoiler alert, Claude doesn't have much of an answer. What I liked about Bard's answer is this statement here: the vast majority of people who are subjected to surveillance are innocent. I appreciate that distinction being made. It's just a matter of fact. I do wish they would have touched on the rights being there first in many cases. It is not simply, to me at least, a matter of debate between the greater good, which is a balance between the two. In many cases, the rights existed before, so the surveillance increasing infringes on those rights. And I wish it would have kind of dived into that a little bit. Here is the answer from Claude. I don't have a personal view on this complex issue. There are reasonable arguments on both sides regarding the appropriate balance between national security and individual privacy. So, Claude does this more than any of the other LLMs. It just opts out of the debate. And it's actually kind of interesting because it says there are reasonable arguments on both sides regarding the appropriate balance. And that actually seems like a personal view that it's expressing, even though it says it doesn't have a personal view on this. So it's just one of the frustrating things with Claude. It could be a good LLM, but so often it just kind of refuses to take part in the conversation, which the conversations are going to happen. And I don't know if it's actually protecting anything by not expressing some view. I'd love to know what you thought of these. Find me on Twitter at Asking AI Podcast. If you're on Apple or Spotify or another podcast platform that allows you to leave a 5-star review and you feel like I've earned it, please go ahead and do that for me. It really helps out a lot. And if you enjoyed this, share it with somebody who might enjoy it too. That's it for this episode of Asking AI. Until next time.